We are here for the Rotary E-Club of the Greater San Fernando Valley with Assistant Governor Julie Jenkins, who's also a past president of the Rotary Club of Burbank Sunrise. Thank you for doing this with us, Julie.
My pleasure.
We're here to talk to you about your experience, both leading up to and going in February of 2010, as I recall reading, on a National Immunization Day in India, which is what we do with the polio eradication efforts. So tell us, please, what drew you to the issue of polio eradication?
Oh my. Well, first of all, I'm a polio survivor, as was my father. So it's played a big role in my life, not nearly at the level it does. It impacts people in other areas of the world. You know, I'm fortunate. I'm a girl. I'm born into the United States of America. I can afford an education and all of those things, whereas so many people in other parts of the world, their lives and their families' lives are really devastated by the effects of polio. So as one of the more fortunate, I still understood the need to eradicate it. Most people, I think these days in America, don't even know what it is. We were at a district function, and a woman in her 50s said, "Rotary keeps telling me we have to eradicate polio, but I don't know what polio is." And she was willing to eradicate it. She just had no clue what in the world she was eradicating. So I think for those of us who do remember, it's important to understand not only for the lives of the people who are still impacted, but people can't afford to be complacent and think that polio can never come back. And it's so easy to spread. Just a few years ago, there was 3 cases in Minnesota in a little farm community, and it can come back so quickly.
A plane ride away is the phrase you hear frequently.
Exactly.
It's interesting. We've had that when we've done some polio eradication events in our club and our previous club. We've said to people in the United States, we're eradicating polio. They'd say, isn't it eradicated already? And the answer is sure, here for the most part, but not necessarily in the rest of the world. So you had the opportunity in February of 2010 to join a group of Rotarians, was it, specifically?
Yes, from the next district over, 5240.
How did that come about?
Well, District 5240 has been doing this for years. Anil, their past district governor who leads it, has done at least 12 of them so far. Every year he goes. And they've also done some in Nigeria as well. Our entry into Nigeria is fairly recent compared to our ability to go into India. So I'd heard about it. It was something I wanted to do. My best friend is a Rotarian in that district. So their conferences are in October, and 5 of the last 6 years I've gone to their conference with her. So I was at dinner one night. It was something I wanted to do. I had no idea how to do it. And I was at dinner the Friday night of her conference and sitting next to a fellow I never met. And he said, "Oh, I'm going to India in February." And I said, "Well, I want to go." And they said, "Oh, well, you need to talk to this person." And I went, "Oh, okay, how am I going to find him?" And I was running late the next morning, and one fellow was walking up the stairs ahead of me, and it was the person I needed to see. So I got him, and we talked, and he goes, "Okay, now you need to see Chief Bob, the fire chief from Cambria." And I said, "Oh, okay, I know how to find him." But just then he walked out of the assembly room, so I got to talk to him. He said, "Okay, now you need to find Anil." And later that day they said, "We know where Anil is," and they grabbed me and ran me down to Anil, and the rest was history.
So when you talk to past District Governor Anil Garg, and 5240 is the district just north of the San Fernando Valley, Santa Barbara, on up the coast.
Correct.
So they were planning a trip in February of 2010 at that point.
Yes.
How many people were going from here?
From our district?
Or the whole Southern California area?
Well, altogether the group consisted of 26 people. And there were a couple from Canada, somebody from Washington, Oregon, somebody who's a past district governor of 50, I think it's 5300 over in Las Vegas and Nevada, me, and then the rest of the folks were from 5240.
Now, was this arranged with Rotarian hosts in India, Rotary clubs or Rotarians there on the ground?
Yes, but it varied. What happened was we flew in as a group to Delhi, and then we had sort of an orientation of what was going to happen. And then we broke up the next day into small groups and went out to towns. We knew the town we were assigned to and the people we would be with in December, I think it was. So I was a group of 5 going out to Badawai. I don't know how they get the I in it because that's not how it's spelled, but they call it Badawai. And we happened to have, the person who was organizing for us had a family issue and hadn't communicated to the local Rotary Club. So they didn't know we were coming till about 3 days beforehand. And we did not end up, therefore, staying in people's homes. We stayed at the nicest hotel in town, the Regency, and my room was $9 a night.
Wow.
You know, it was a unique experience. It wasn't quite the home experience. Other groups in different areas, some stayed in hotels and some stayed in Rotarians' homes. And for me, it was February in India is not unlike February in Los Angeles, so it can be cold at night. And if I turned off the air conditioning, the hot water turned off as well. So in the morning, I'd have cold water. Or I could sleep with the air conditioning on all night to have tepid water in the morning. And somebody referred to it as camping with tiles. It was a unique experience. You know, the kitchen. This was a hotel where people would come to celebrate big events in the families and all of that. And it's not what we would imagine for such an occasion, you know, for mica top tables and maybe 10 or 12 of them. But the door opened to the alley, and that's where the kitchen was. And but the people were lovely. Sanitation was a little different. Anything that needed to leave your hotel room got thrown out into the garbage pile across the street where the pigs were rooting. And
well, they need to eat too.
They do, and I think that to be a pig in India has got to be an amazing experience because the Hindi culture is vegetarian, and Muslims wouldn't eat pork, so they're good. Man, they just wander around and they're happy campers there.
Probably almost as safe as in Israel. That makes sense. Yeah. So when you arrived in the town,
yes.
I'm not going to try to pronounce it. I'm going to let you say it one more time.
Badawai.
Badawai. And there's no I in there.
No.
This will be fun.
B-A-D-A-U-N.
B-A-D. Okay. That's going to be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the E is silent. I love that. So when you arrived there, the next thing happened. Did the people in the town know that this was a National Immunization Day? Was it a big national thing, or was
yes.
this okay?
Yes. One of the misconceptions I had was that there was this one day of year when this would occur. And this was the biggest push of the year. And that day, 175 million children were immunized.
Wow.
But the immunization goes on month after month after month after month. Unfortunately, the best way to deliver the vaccine would be through needles. Mm-hmm. But they don't have the needles, they don't have the trained personnel to administer, and they don't have the means for disposing of the needles afterwards. So we do it with the vaccine. And the vaccine, the goal, I believe, is to try to be immunized at least 3 times before your 5th birthday. But if diarrhea is an issue, you can take the vaccine and it can run right through you and do no good. One of the groups was in a town where a father was so irate. He had, I think, 8 daughters and then had a son. Mm. And he'd gotten all his children immunized multiple times, and his son developed polio. And he didn't know how, didn't know why we couldn't prevent it. And, how does one answer that question when confronted with it? But yes, we actually led a parade the day before to make sure everybody was aware that the next day was the immunization day. And it was really interesting experience. They had like a Victrola on a cart, and somebody would drag the cart through with the Victrola going, with these announcements, and then there were banners, and we'd be walking in our bright yellow jackets, just waving at everybody, and it was clear we weren't local, so attracted a lot of attention in that way. And then we went to meet with the district, sort of the polio office for the district, where they filled us in on some of the statistics and things that were going on.
Is this the District of India or the Rotary District in India?
No, it would be, it's in Uttar Pradesh, the province we were in, but I think both the region and the town is Badawai, so it would be for that region and town, because this was one of the major towns in that area. And the people were just so lovely, but it's very different from what you expect. As I mentioned earlier, the sanitation really isn't there. The infrastructure isn't there for the sanitation, and they know it. So they're trying to figure out how to remove garbage and where they can take it once they remove it. Because how do you look at a farmer and say, your livelihood's gone, we're taking your land to use it as a landfill? So that they understand what they need to do, and it's a big challenge to do it. But for instance, an hour after dark, the electricity shut off until the next morning. But at the hotels, they have generators so that people traveling can still have electricity through the night and keep their air conditioning running.
Yes, so they have hot water in the morning.
Indeed.
Wow. So after the parade, and
yes.
I expect that you'll have a slightly different parade experience in January when you're riding on Rotary's parade float this year, representing 5260. The morning comes,
yes,
after the camping with tiles.
Mm-hmm.
What was the process in the morning as you went out and started immunizing the children for the first time on the trip?
Well, the thing is, there are various stations set up in town and in outlying villages. So our goal, we were there really for two things. Not so much physically to immunize. We were given the opportunity to do that. But we were there for two things. One is to be a witness, to ensure that the immunization is happening, that the vaccines are kept at the correct temperature and that sort of thing. And the other was really to encourage and show support for the people who are out there month after month after month. The folks in India, when they began this, they thought it would be done years ago, and it isn't. And still they're out there doing it, and to show that people will fly across the world to say we care.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's an amazing experience when you see it, but to have been in the middle of it, is amazing. Did you have the opportunity to administer the 2 drops to children?
And don't tell anybody, but I think there might have been a third drop stuck in there somewhere, because it takes a little bit of getting used to.
We've discussed the possibility of giving medication to cats, you and I, this morning, so I can understand the 3 drops instead of 2.
Yes.
I mean, that's fascinating.
But you don't get it spit back in your eye, so it's so much easier that way.
Helps. Yeah, and less hissing.
Yes.
This is good. It sounds like you're describing, because in my head I have the mental image of the walking through the streets of the town and putting the chalk mark or something on the door. But it sounds to me like you're describing that there were stations set up on a known day. That's why you had the parade, encouraging the parents to bring their children to you instead of the teams going out door to door.
Right. That was the next day. So day 3, we were going out to the villages, and there are people who monitor regularly, and then they do the chalk marks on the door. So we walked with the health officers, and it was fascinating, because we went to Hindi villages and we went to Muslim villages, and traditionally the part of the issue with polio eradication in India was that some people in the Muslim community were afraid that it was an American plot to sterilize their children, and so they avoided it. And then the imams got together and said, no, this is really important. It's the health of our children at stake, and we need to do this. So the differences in the villages I found very interesting as well, because somehow the Muslim villages we went to seemed to have a better grip on the sanitation issue than the Hindi villages. And I don't know why that is, but it was a marked difference between the communities. But then going to the villages where somebody, going to the doors where a child should have been immunized and wasn't, and the parents might say, oh, they're sick, so I can't do it, and then the health official asks to come see the child to see if there's anything else they can do.
So we're on day 3 and now you're doing the door-to-door stuff.
Yeah.
Now this is day 3. How many days were you in India, all told?
Ooh, about 7, I think. I think we spent 4 nights out in the villages, and then we regrouped in Delhi, and then we had a series of meetings in Delhi. And then actually the folks who wanted to had the opportunity to go to Agra to see the Taj Mahal. And I had done that 7 or 8 months earlier, so I went shopping instead.
Ah, okay.
It was a great experience.
Now, the part of the process that we hear about is, and there's a lot of great projects of education in America for kids,
Yes.
is the purple pinky. Were you marking the children's
Yes.
pinkies as they were immunized?
Yes.
Also out door to door?
Door to door, I think not.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember it because of the mark on the wall. So,
Right.
and the caseworkers were making their notes.
Mm-hmm.
They know every person in each of those villages
Mm-hmm.
and what's going on.
Yeah. That's one of the issues that I think that even when Bill Gates goes out on TV and talks about his efforts and wears his End Polio Now pin, I think he sometimes forgets that it sounds to me like the power of Rotary's efforts with the World Health Organization, with the other organizations, is that we have the connection to the people on the ground
Yes.
who know the people who need the immunization. That's what gets it out there.
Yes.
So bringing Rotarians from around the world into the local community, that adds an order of magnitude that gives the local people. Do you feel the local people were given credibility from this in their local communities? Were given the extra push of, it's not just us saying this, your neighbors, it's also, look what we're bringing to you from around the world to help?
I can't answer that. My take on it was not that. My take on it was showing support both for the people doing the immunization and for the local people. So I don't know that it gave them more credibility. One of the things that's interesting and a little disturbing is that there are, not in the villages that I was in, but at least one other village, the parents were very savvy, and there are other health challenges, such as diphtheria, things of that nature. And so they know it's really important to the government that the polio immunization happens. So they try to essentially hold their kids hostage and say, we won't allow you to immunize for polio until you also immunize for diphtheria and that kind of thing. So they're really bargaining to try to get everything they need. But to me, that speaks to the fact that they understand the importance, and they understand that the government understands the importance. But what I found most was just people saying, because what they emphasized were, we'd all spend our own money to come halfway around the world. And so, why? Because we care.
Yeah. What were the reactions? I mean, we're talking also about some infants, but what were the reactions of the children who were already old enough, 3, 4, approaching 5, to interact a little bit with these strange people from another place?
Some shy, some curious, some would be crying, but it is, but most of all, charming. I mean, when we were going out to the villages, we stopped in some other places, and there was a schoolhouse with, I think, one teacher that taught about 250 children from first through eighth grade. And some of the students were there, and there was one other woman in my little group, so we got to do girl activities, which was playing badminton. And I forget what the guys had to do. I don't remember, but maybe they were kicking a soccer ball or something. But it was just a fascinating experience to see, when you think of one teacher teaching 250 people, it's daunting,
And all different levels.
Exactly,
Yep.
exactly.
Okay.
But one of the things we found was in these villages, and even in the town, going into a shop, it was the youngest person in the shop who could speak English, and they were very articulate. And in the one village we were in, one of the fellows was an engineer, and it started out, you sort of collect an entourage as you go, because you walk down the streets and people are kind of staring at you and smile and nod and wave, and then the kids start following you. And then the parents feel, okay, well, we'll follow them too because kids are following them and it's okay. But one fellow was so excited to talk to an engineer, and he ran home and grabbed his homework and came and brought his textbook and was showing him all his homework and the textbooks he was using and things of that nature. So it was really amazing. And one of the things we did after the parade was they took us to a home, and the local Rotarians helped support. It was a school, but it's a school for the deaf or blind. So all these, they can stay in the school, I think through 15 or 16, and they're there 8 or 9 months a year, and then home for a few months and then back. But every child in the school was either deaf or blind. And they were just the most delightful people. So the teachers were so caring. So they were showing us how they teach them. One fellow was born literally with no eyes. And, you can imagine the challenges he's going to face down the road, but he's getting an education through these people. And the girls, they put these little girls in their finery, and they put on a music video. And the girls were dancing for us. They're doing their thing. And I totally forgot they were deaf. They could not hear the music at all. But they'd glance over and see the video, and their instructor would be doing this kind of thing, And I don't dance, and they made me go out there and dance with them. Well, they invited me to, and how can you say no, So it was an amazing experience to see that going on. And then our Rotarians on our last day took us also to, it'd be sort of their equivalent of a parochial school that doesn't get government funding. And it was an amazing experience. These students, there were some students that stay there, that live at the facility, and they were doing sort of Zen archery, where they lay down on their back with the bow and arrow on the ground and shoot over their shoulder and hit the target.
Wow.
And playing their music and doing the chants, and you'd see the kids trying to be really serious chanting, and then the younger ones kind of peeking at us to see what we were doing as they were doing the chanting. It was just such an incredible. And then one Rotarian son was getting married, so they were having the bachelor party, which is not like a bachelor party. It was just all the men dancing and all. So they brought us to the front room of that facility, and then they asked us to come back and meet everybody. And so Angela and I were the only women there, and the guys wanted us to dance. And again, I don't dance, but how can you say no? And the following night we went to the wedding. It was the last day of, the wedding ceremony takes days to build up, and this was the final thing. And to be able to have that experience as well was really amazing and lovely.
So all you really did in 7 whole days in India was gather huge followings of children and adults, immunize children and help other children, go to a bachelor party, a wedding, a home for deaf and blind children and get to play with them and have fun, and find time to go shopping.
Wrong.
Oh.
because there's the whole day of really important meetings that we went to.
Oh, I
as
forgot
well.
about the meeting. Well, it's Rotary.
Back in Delhi, yes.
Right. We have to have meetings at some point in Rotary.
Yes. So one of the things Rotary does is they have a blood bank in Delhi. So we got to go to the blood bank and meet the people, see their technology and what they do, and how they're able to help supply hospitals with blood, good, clean blood, and relatively low cost, which is excellent. And then my all-time favorite thing was going to St. Stephen's, and there's a doctor there who's just like the Energizer Bunny of surgeons. He's the most amazing man. But they bring, the care is free, but they bring in people who have had polio. And some of these people, they might be, when they get there, 8, they might be 22, but have never walked in their lives. And because of that, their bodies are really contorted and distorted. If you're sitting cross-legged for 18, 20 years, you're just not going, your bone structure and your muscles don't form the way they need to. And this man and his team has them walk out there.
Mm. Wow. Yeah, that's pretty impressive. So if a Rotarian came up to you and said, I'm thinking about maybe going on a journey like this someday, do you think it's worth it? Should I bother with something like this? What would you tell them?
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
Sounds good to me. I would love to learn more and more about this, so we may have to have another conversation with the trusty video camera. But even though we meet 24/7, we need to let everyone go home. So Julie Jenkins, thank you for this time, and I hope we'll do this again sometime soon.
Okay. Thank you.